Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We have another one of our award previews for the 2024 season. Last week we had our Rookie of the Year preview for 2024. Now we're looking at the Cy Young Award, both in youth and high school, for our spring-summer season. And let's go ahead and get right into it. We're looking at kind of the top five, general consensus rankings for the most likely to win these awards. But obviously, these are not necessarily our personal predictions. We'll get into those in another episode. But these are kind of the general kind of picture of these awards. So let's go ahead and get it started with the Youth Cy Young. And I think there's the Cy Young Award in both youth and high school. I think it's up for grabs. I think there's several different guys, both in these top fives and also even a couple guys outside of the top five that I think could definitely win it. But I think based off what we saw in the BWL, based on what we know in terms of what we've seen in precision pitching and just what we saw, last year in the fall, ZZ Garcia is coming in at number one as the favorite to win the Youth Cy Young. When you're looking at kind of overpowering versus his opponents, I think ZZ's definitely got that highest potential to be the highest strikeout rate in the entire Bears. And I think if we see some of the control that he had in the BWL, especially in his third and fourth start, this guy could be just absolutely dominant. KJ, when you're looking at ZZ Garcia as the favorite to be the Youth Cy Young, what do you think is kind of the picture for ZZ's 2024 season that sees him winning the Youth Cy Young?
Yeah, I think it showed in BWL, and even last year, in the fall. When ZZ throws strikes, he's virtually unhittable. It's just if he throws strikes, and I think this year he's been much more consistent in the strike zone. I think last year, he was throwing his fastballs for strikes, but he couldn't throw his breaking ball for strikes. I think this year he's much more consistent with throwing his breaking ball for strike and throwing his fastball for strikes. But, there's not a lot of kids who are going to throw harder than ZZ. At the entire age. There's definitely not a lot of people who have a better curveball than him. So if he throws strikes, he's going to dominate.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about pure talent, I think ZZ is probably is arguably the most talented pitcher in terms of being age appropriate in this entire Bears. So yeah, excited to see that. Moving on to the number 2 in this list, Bernie, we're going with Evan Lancaster. I think this guy, what he put on in the BWL was absolutely dominant, especially when you consider the competition he was facing. Evan has always been kind of a favorite of yours, Bernie, on both sides of the ball, but specifically on the mound. I think he looks dominant. He just threw 75 off the mound. We're starting to get into Lucas Velchek territory in terms of velocity with Evan Lancaster, and I think you could argue he's got better breaking balls and maybe even better command than Lucas Velchek. So, Bernie, give me your thoughts here. Evan Lancaster, what's his Cy Young case for 2024?
Yeah, look, if I'm looking at this list of guys right here, and I have to place a bet on who's going to win Cy Young, I would probably pick Evan Lancaster. I know we talked about how he's overpowering stuff, and he does, but I think Evan does as well, right? We just said he hit 75. I think there's, at least I have zero questions at least about his control, right? Is he going to throw strikes? I think it's a 100% chance, yes, he's going to throw strikes. Great curveball, great slider, has a changeup as well, can throw all 4 for strikes. I just think that there's no question about this guy. I think that, even at his worst, he's still going to be in the Cy Young conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, Bernie. I think he's definitely going to open the season as the ace for this team with Lucas Wilburn and Lucas Velchek, 2 guys who also could be Cy Young candidates, missing the first 6 weeks of the season with their high school teams. So, yeah, I think Evan's going to get a chance to shine early in the year, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can really bulk up those numbers because we know what he can put up in the strikeout category. We'll just see if he's really that lockdown pitcher that he looked like in the BWL. Number 3 here is Kaden Inman. This is a guy, I would say, of these 3 pitchers that we've talked about so far, maybe the ceiling has kind of gone down after each pitcher, but I think the floor's gone up after each pitcher. Caden Inman, I think, is even more of a sure thing in terms of being able to throw strikes with multiple pitches. I think he's got the smallest range that his ERA could be. I think it's, at least in my opinion, he's definitely going to be in between 2.5 and 3.5 in his ERA, where ZZ, I think, could be 1.5, he could be 4.5, kind of same thing with Evan. I think this is the safest pitcher on this list here, and KJ, when you're looking at Kaden Inman, who was the Cy Young of the BWL, what do you think about his chances to kind of maybe outperform these top two guys who maybe have a little bit higher ceilings, but maybe are a little bit riskier?
Yeah, I think, like you said, his floor is so high. He's going to pump strikes. Consistency is never an issue for Kaden. I think the only thing holding him back from winning Cy Young is if Evan and ZZ hit their ceilings. I think, if you're making a safe bet on who's going to do it, Kaden Inman is the safest pitcher on here because he's proven. He's been consistent his whole career. I think we know what Kaden's going to give you, and he's going to give you a great season. I just think ZZ and Evan could give you that unbelievable elite season.
Yeah, and when we look at the trend of kind of who's won Cy Young over the past couple of years, you need a sub-2 ERA to win Cy Young with how pitching is in the Bears right now. There's always seems like somebody who's just dominating. When you talk about guys, we had a Cy Young race, I believe 2 falls ago, that we had 4 pitchers with a sub-2 ERA in the Cy Young race. I think maybe he doesn't quite have that ceiling of having a sub-2 or even sub-1.5 ERA. But I think when you talk about the safety, I think Kaden Inman is definitely going to be in the conversation for the Cy Young. Number 4 here, Bernie. This is a guy I think a little bit more speculative. This guy definitely had his moments last fall where he came on as a pitcher. But I think to take that step forward into the Cy Young, I think we're kind of adding a little bit of speculation here. And that's Harrison Blaibom, who definitely has looked really, really good in BWL, has looked unbelievable in precision pitching in terms of his development. And when you look at the stretch he went on last fall of about 5 to 7 starts where he was really, really good, I think you could see Harrison Blaibom putting together a Cy Young season because he could definitely be the best pitcher on this team. Bernie, give me your thoughts on Harrison Blaibom. What is the case that he could make to kind of pass these other 3 guys in the Cy Young race?
Yeah, look, last fall was Harrison's kind of first time being a full-time pitcher. And I didn't get up with like a 4.7 ERA, which was the lowest on the team. And going into the fall or winter, I know he had a rough first outing in BWL, but after that, again, was not locked down. Right, he's facing a lot of good 13U hitters, but I thought was him and Nolan Lewis are right there as the best 12U guys who threw in that league. And just this guy in precision pitching looks unbelievable. Like you said, we're adding a little bit of speculation here. This guy's thrown live to 12U hitters twice for me. He's faced about 18 hitters, and I would put a bet on that he's allowed 0 hits. He's allowed some weak contact, but I don't think he's allowed any hits. Right? He probably has faced 18 batters and has 10, 11 Ks. Right? This guy's looked unhittable in our live at bats. But yeah, I think that this guy has the ceiling. A little risky, but I think has a ceiling to make a case here.
Yeah, obviously, when you look at the Cy Young Award, the first place you're going to look is who's the best pitcher on each team that we're talking about in the youth. And I think Harrison's got the opportunity to be the best pitcher on his team. And if the race is close, I think you could definitely see, a low ERA at 12U, I think is a little more impressive than a low ERA, say, at 14U. So I think Harrison could definitely steal this award depending on how things go. And then finally, number 5 in the youth Cy Young is going to be Cam Bernstein. I think, arguably, maybe not the highest ceiling of this group, but maybe the most proven ceiling. He's a guy who's actually gone out and done the numbers that we're talking about, the things that we said ZZ could do or Evan could do. Cam Bernstein's done it. Maybe not in that big a sample size, but last fall he was one of the, if not the best pitcher in all of the youth Bears. I think he's had some rough outings in the BWL that's kind of dropped his stock a little bit, but in terms of just pure stuff, I think Cam Bernstein is still one of the best pitchers in the Bears. KJ, I think Cam's coming in maybe as an underdog for this Cy Young Award race, but what do you see as kind of the path for him to kind of overcome the guys above him and win the Cy Young?
Yeah, like you said, we've seen Cam be, one of the best pitchers, in the Bears. I think he's a lot like ZZ. When he throws strikes, he's pretty unhittable. And I think, out of all the guys besides maybe Kaden Inman, I think Cam can throw his breaking ball for strikes the most consistently out of everyone. So, he's a curveball heavy pitcher, but he's also got some velocity on his fastball. If Cam repeats what he did in the fall, I think he's got a good shot at it. He just got to get better from there.
Yeah, 100%. I think this youth Cy Young race is going to be absolutely crazy. So honorable mentions, obviously Lucas Wilbur and Lucas Velchek, not starting the season because they'll be in high school ball, but they could come back and absolutely be dominant. Mason Geddes, I think, is a good shout. Avery McNicholas has looked really, really promising. And then Owen Lewis and Whedon Hainline, I think, as well. And even Owen Haynes, I think all could sneak into the Cy Young Award race as well. Let's move into the high school Cy Young Award. The number 1 here, Bernie, I think it's pretty obvious. Back-to-back Cy Young Award winner is Logan Eckert. Everybody who's kind of cast the doubts about Logan, where he's just a strike thrower, and then he goes up and puts up a 11K per nine. He can't do it on Sundays, and he gets put on Sundays and keeps an ERA below 3. I think he's proved every doubter wrong every step of the way, Bernie, and he's definitely the favorite for me to win the Cy Young. Maybe not the most talented pitcher in the high school Bears. I think we're going to talk about several guys who have more talent, but in terms of what they've done, I think nobody's got a better case than Logan Eckert. Give me your thoughts here, Bernie, for Logan Eckert to be the 3-time Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, look, like you said, there's been people questioning that. Before the excuse was, he pitched on Saturdays against a bad team. That was the excuse running. And then they pitched on Sunday against, some of the top teams, and he's still dominated, right? This guy, every time he goes out there, he's going to give you 6 innings probably. He can throw 3 pitches with pinpoint accuracy. He might be the most accurate pitcher in the Bears. And look, this guy's back-to-back. This guy has to be the favorite, and I see no reason why he can't do it again.
Yeah. Number 2, arguably the most talented pitcher now, KJ. We've gone from the guy who maybe has the best track record to the guy who probably has the most talent in Mac Floyd. I mean, the BWL numbers he put up, I think 44 strikeouts to like 9 walks. I mean, he was absolutely dominant in the BWL. Obviously the question, kind of like ZZ, is always going to be, if Mac's in the strike zone, nobody's going to touch him. Can he consistently be in the strike zone? I think he's shown more and more consistently he's in the strike zone. I think for Mac, it's just limiting those 1 or 2 blow-up outings that kind of hurt his ERA. But give me your thoughts on Mac as a Cy Young candidate, KJ.
Yeah, I think Mac is a lot unlike a lot of these pitchers. I think Mac lives with his fastball. And I think a lot of the guys we've talked about, live with their curveball. I think Mac has the best fastball in the Bears. And when he throws strikes, if he can throw strikes, he's going to win the Cy Young Award. He's going to have double the amount of Ks that he has walks. He's just got to throw strikes. And, when he's in the zone, with his fastball touching, upper mid-80s, he's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Then number 3, probably the second most talented pitcher in the Bears, in Elliot Myers. Mac has the best fastball. I think you could say Elliot probably has the best breaking stuff in the entire Bears. Coming off a bit of a down year, Bernie, where he wasn't quite the Elliot Myers we've come to really know and love. Even his first BWL outing was a little bit rocky, but from his 3rd outing to his last outing in BWL, he was the Elliot Myers of old. He was absolutely dominant. Bernie, I think it's easy to see, at least for us who've kind of been around BWL and precision pitching, Elliott looks like he's right back in full form. But what do you see as his kind of path to be the Cy Young in 2024?
Yeah, look, I know Kay just said about a couple guys here, but if he throws strikes, man. We saw this guy last year. He'd go out there. I think there's actually a start out there where he went 3 innings, no hits, like 7 walks and 7 Ks. And he threw like 85 pitches in 3 innings, right? For guys virtually unhittable if you throw strikes, right? Like you said, curveball, slider, sinker mix, that is absolutely devastating. Anyone, he can throw 5 pitches, all of them for strikes. Definitely, if he's around the zone, he's going to get swing and misses. He could easily be a Cy Young.
Yeah, we've talked about the top 3 here, and we have yet to mention arguably the best staff in the entire Bears, which could be the 6U Dalton team. And I think the Cy Young Award's really interesting with this Dalton team because kind of how Ike runs his team, none of his guys really accumulate a bunch of innings, so they kind of get on the back foot there. But a guy who I think has the most potential to be the dominant force in this pitching rotation is actually Jack Dalton. This guy, I think, has the best combination of stuff versus control of all the pitchers on Dalton, and maybe one of the best in the entire Bears in terms of stuff and control. KJ, I think this guy could be absolutely electric, and when you're looking at the Cy Young Award, the best pitching staff's probably going to be Dalton, and Jack might be the best pitcher there. So what do you think about Jack Dalton's case to be the Cy Young Award?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to pick the best athlete to make your case for Cy Young, I think Jack Dalton is the best athlete out of all these guys. He's got a good velocity, he's got good control, he's got good breaking stuff. I think the only thing that's going to stop him is getting the innings and someone on his own team beating him out.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the guy on his own team that could maybe beat him out, guy who is going to do it in a slow and steady way, he's going to go, he's not going to have these 10K outings, but he's just going to every outing be consistent, is Santiago Story. Finished number 2 in our Cy Young Award back last fall. And Bernie, again, when you look at the Cy Young and you look at the best staff, Santi, I think, could be the leader of this staff. What do you think about Santi's case as maybe an underdog to win the Cy Young Award?
Yeah, look, he kind of fits that Kaden Inman, Logan Eckert type profile where he's not going to overpower you with stuff. But look, worst case scenario for Santi, I think he's like a 3 ERA guy. His floor is so high. He's going to pound the zone. He can throw multiple pitches for strikes. He has great defense behind him. I think his path to win Cy Young, look, if if Logan Eckert has a season like he's had, it's going to go to Logan Eckert. If Mack or Elliott have, their ceiling season, it's going to go to one of them, right? But Santi's going to be in the top 3 at worst, I feel like, in this voting. He just has that high of a floor. I think he's easily a 2.5 ERA guy.
Yeah, I think it's a great call, Bernie, 100%. That was our Cy Young Award preview for the 2024 spring-summer season. Next week, we are going to take down the MVP conversation. So many different guys who I think could jump into the MVP in both youth and high school. Some guys that have won MVPs before, and some guys who are just starting their breakouts in the Bears. So very excited to jump into that. But that's been this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to y'all next week.